Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We are breaking down a philosophical framework known as the science of hope. This actually comes straight from a foundational lecture given back on November 23rd, 1987. And what makes this text so gripping isn't just that it talks about hope as some warm, fuzzy feeling. No, it breaks it down into a highly structured, almost mechanical system. We're going to explore exactly how our thought patterns literally shape our reality. So, the big question we're tackling right out of the gate is this: can your mind actually act as a magnet for your destiny? The source material we're looking at today doesn't treat the human mind like a passive observer just watching the world go by. Instead, it frames the mind as this incredibly active magnetic force. It argues that whatever we hold in our heads is actively pulling circumstances, people, and events right toward us. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, an overview of the science of hope. Second, Komyo-shisho, or belief in the future. Third, releasing past traumas. Fourth, active change in words and actions. And finally, number 5, how conviction attracts spiritual aid. Okay, let's jump straight into section 1, overview of the science of hope. This framework from the 1987 lecture shows us right away that we aren't dealing with abstract feel-good theory here. The text outlines a really deliberate geared mechanism. It's a step-by-step philosophy designed to help you literally rewrite your fate. Originally presented to a small group, the core premise was incredibly bold. It claimed that by mastering a specific 3-part system of thought, reflection, and conviction, a person can fundamentally alter the entire trajectory of their life. Moving right along to section 2, Kamiyoshi-so, constructive thought and belief. So, Komyo-shisho roughly translates to constructive, luminous thought. The text defines this as a really strong self-reliance and the absolute conviction that the future will definitely improve. But here is the real kicker. The lecture posits that this unwavering optimism isn't just, good for your stress levels, it functions as a literal magnetic pole for good fortune. It requires some serious inner strength. The author makes a point to note that it isn't just about crossing your fingers and wishing for the best. It's about a deeply rooted resilience that doesn't just completely collapse the second things get tough. Section 3, releasing past traumas. Because, if our minds are magnets, why aren't we all just attracting perfect lives? Well, the text identifies past pain as the main roadblock, a literal binding of the mind that blocks that magnetic force. The framework draws a really sharp line between dwelling on your failures and genuinely engaging in constructive reflection. When you just dwell on things, you're essentially programming your subconscious with an image of defeat. Constructive reflection, on the other hand, means you extract the lesson, you change your approach, and then, this is the most crucial part, you unbind your mind by letting it go. The text heavily warns against dragging the tin cans of your past failures behind you. It actually says that this kind of mindset essentially marries you to unhappiness. And nobody wants that. The source uses such a visceral analogy for this. Imagine you get a minor scrape. If you keep peeling off the bandage just to check if it's healing, what happens? You just make it bleed all over again. We all know someone who kind of can't stop picking at a scab, right? Well, the lecture argues we do the exact same thing with our mental wounds. By constantly recalling and agonizing over past traumas, we're basically ripping off the mental bandage. To actually heal, you absolutely have to stop touching the wound. Building on that idea, the text points out a specific trap that a lot of really intelligent people tend to fall into. It warns against analyzing your past mistakes endlessly, kind of like a philosopher in despair. People can spend 10 whole years dissecting exactly why they were wronged or why they failed, but perfectly explaining the reasons for your unhappiness doesn't actually make you happy. True reflection isn't about wallowing in guilt. It's about making a clean break so you can finally seize the happiness that's sitting right in front of you. Which brings us to section 4, active change in words and actions. So, once you've stopped peeling those mental bandages and released those bindings, what comes next? The philosophy breaks the action phase down into 3 super practical steps. Step 1, like we just talked about, is deep reflection to clear away that inner turmoil. Step 2 is incredibly specific, deliberately changing the words you speak out loud. And step 3 is taking confident action. The text argues that crossing that bridge from internal thought to external spoken word is absolutely critical when it comes to manifesting your reality. Let's zoom in on step 2 for a second. The lecture explicitly warns against getting stuck in a self-deprecation loop. If you're constantly muttering things like, "Oh, I'm just bad at this," or "My memory is so terrible," the text claims you are literally programming your subconscious to fail. You're reinforcing a negative reality every single time you speak it into the air. Plus, you can't let external conditions dictate your resolve. The author gives this great example of someone who feels highly motivated to achieve a goal, but then decides to just quit because it starts raining outside. True resolve really doesn't care about the rain. You have to stop vocalizing your anxieties and start speaking your goals into existence.
Finally, let's look at Section 5. Conviction attracts spiritual aid.
Now we're pivoting to the final and maybe the most esoteric catalyst of this whole philosophy. We're moving beyond just human psychology and looking at the spiritual mechanics outlined in the text. According to this framework, sheer human willpower actually isn't the final step. Instead, willpower acts more like a beacon. The text states, the unwavering conviction that a goal will absolutely be realized pulls in powerful external support. When your conscious mind and your subconscious mind align perfectly, without even a single drop of doubt, that conviction acts as a massive magnetic force reaching way beyond the physical world. To understand how this external support supposedly works, the source brings in the concept of guiding spirits. The lecture posits that guardian and guiding spirits actively exist to help people on Earth. But there's a catch. They don't just help anyone. They align with individuals who maintain a humble, empty heart while striving to accomplish really great, constructive work. If you're deeply committed to a noble goal and you've managed to release those selfish attachments, the framework says these spirits will step in to provide powerful inspiration and spiritual cooperation. The text actually compares a person's absolute conviction to a radio signal. When you maintain a crystal clear, sustained image of your hope and success, you're broadcasting a thought wave. So, you know when you suddenly meet the exact right collaborator or just stumble onto the absolute perfect opportunity? Well, according to the text, that is no accident. It claims those spiritual collaborators tune into your specific frequency, and they help arrange those serendipitous encounters for you in the physical world. So, the crucial point tying this whole explainer together is this genuinely beautiful visual metaphor from the text. Your subconscious is the soil, and your thoughts are the seeds. The author points out that a tiny sunflower seed doesn't look like much in your hand, right? But when you plant it in the right soil, it absorbs energy and grows into this massive, vibrant flower. If you plant seeds of doubt, self-pity, and past trauma, well, that is exactly what's going to bloom. But if you plant seeds of kommyoshiso, that unwavering hope and conviction, you will grow a reality that matches it. You can literally only grow what you consciously choose to plant. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, the one that this 1987 lecture really demands every listener ask themselves. Take a hard look at the words you spoke today, the thoughts you allowed to linger in your head, and the past you might still be holding on to. What kind of seeds are you planting in your subconscious right now? Because according to the science of hope, whatever they are, they're already starting to bloom. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.